welcome back to the final tale. Today's story is one I've debated telling for months now. Not because it's not terrifying, it absolutely is, but because every time I think about it, every time I remember that night, I feel this overwhelming sense of sadness mixed with fear. This happened in February 2024, February 14th to be exact, Valentine's Day. I remember because I'd just gone through a bad breakup and I decided to take a solo road trip to clear my head. Get away from everything, drive from Arizona to California, take the scenic routes, maybe find some perspective. I'm a photographer by trade and I'd always wanted to capture Route 66, the historic highway, the Mother Road. Most of it's been replaced by interstates now. But there are still stretches in Arizona and California where you can drive the original route. There's something haunting about it, old motels with neon signs that don't light up anymore, abandoned gas stations, ghost towns. So there I was in my beat-up Honda Civic, driving west on a stretch of Route 66 between Kingman, Arizona and Needles, California. It was late, around 11 p.m. I probably should have stopped for the night, but I was making good time and figured I'd push through to Barstow. Then the rain started, not just rain, a complete downpour. The kind where your windshield wipers can't keep up no matter how fast you set them. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. I slowed down to about 30 miles per hour, gripping the steering wheel tight, leaning forward like that would somehow help me see better. The road was completely empty. No other cars, no lights except my headlights cutting through the rain and darkness. The radio had lost its signal miles back, so all I could hear was the rain hammering on the roof and the rhythmic squeak of the wipers. I'd been driving like this for maybe 20 minutes when I saw her. At first, she was just a shape in the darkness, a figure standing on the shoulder of the road. As I got closer, my headlights illuminated her fully. A young woman, maybe early 20s, wearing a white dress. Not a coat, not a jacket, just a thin white dress that was completely soaked through. Her dark hair was plastered to her face. She had her thumb out hitchhiking. My first thought was, what the hell is she doing out here? There was nothing around for miles. No broken down car, no buildings, nothing, just empty desert and this impossible rain. My second thought was, I should keep driving. Every horror movie, every true crime podcast, every piece of common sense says don't pick up hitchhikers, especially not at night on a deserted highway. But then I saw her face in the headlights. She looked absolutely miserable, soaked, shivering, probably hypothermic, and I thought, what kind of person would I be if I just left her here? I pulled over. I unlocked the passenger door and she got in quickly, bringing a gust of cold air and rain with her. Water pooled on the seat beneath her. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft, almost whisper quiet. "Thank you so much. Jesus, you're soaked," I said, reaching back to grab a blanket I kept in the backseat. "Here, take this. What happened?" "Did your car break down?" She took the blanket but didn't wrap it around herself, just held it in her lap. "I need to get to Pinewood Cemetery," she said. "Can you take me there, Pinewood Cemetery?" I didn't know it, but I had GPS. Sure, let me just." I pulled out my phone and typed it in. It was about 15 miles ahead, right off Route 66. "Yeah, okay, but seriously, are you all right? Do you need me to call someone, the police, an ambulance?" "No," she said quickly. "No police, please, just take me to Pinewood Cemetery." There was something in her voice, urgency, maybe desperation, that made me not push it. I put the car in drive and pulled back onto the highway. "I'm David, by the way," I said, trying to make conversation, trying to normalize this completely bizarre situation. She didn't respond. I glanced over at her. She was sitting perfectly still, hands folded in her lap over the blanket, staring straight ahead. The water from her dress was still dripping, forming a bigger puddle on the seat. "What's your name?" I tried again. Nothing, not even a glance in my direction. Okay, this was getting weird, but maybe she was in shock or something. Hypothermia can do strange things to people. I turned the heat up higher, hoping it would help. We drove in silence. The rain continued its relentless assault on the car. I kept trying to see her in my peripheral vision, but she never moved. Never turned her head, never shifted position. She could have been a statue. After about 10 minutes, I tried again. "Look, I'm not trying to pry, but are you sure you're okay? Did someone hurt you? Are you running from something?" Still nothing. "Because if someone hurt you, I can help. We can go to the police, or I can take you to a hospital, or just take me to Pinewood Cemetery." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "Please." Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. I stopped talking. I focused on driving. The rain seemed to be getting worse, if that was possible. I passed a few landmarks I'd noted earlier: an old gas station, a sign for a town called Essex that probably didn't exist anymore. We were getting close. Then my phone's GPS said, in 500 feet, turn right to Pinewood Cemetery. I put my turn signal on stupid, really, since there were no other cars, and slowed down. There was a small road leading off the highway, barely visible in the rain. I turned onto it. About a quarter mile down this road, I saw the cemetery gates. They were old wrought iron with Pinewood Cemetery spelled out in the arch above them. The gates were closed. I pulled up to them and stopped the car. "We're here," I said. No response. I turned to look at her. "Hey, the seat was empty. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not embellishing. The passenger seat, where a woman had been sitting for the past 15 minutes, was empty. The blanket I'd given her was still there, soaked through. The puddle of water was still there, but she was gone. What the fuck?" I said out loud. My heart was racing. I looked in the backseat, empty. I checked the door locks, all locked from the inside, the way I'd locked them when she first got in. This wasn't possible. People don't just disappear from locked cars. I got out, standing in the pouring rain, and looked around. Nothing, no one, just my car, the cemetery gates, and the darkness. "Hello," I shouted. "Hey. Where did you go?" The rain was so loud that even my shouts seemed muted. I went to the cemetery gates. They were chained and locked with a heavy padlock. No one could have gotten through them. But as I stood there, my flashlight app turned on, I noticed something. Water dripping through the gates from the inside. Fresh water mixing with the rain, and footprints. Wet footprints on the path beyond the gates, leading into the cemetery. My hands were shaking as I stood there. This didn't make sense. None of this made sense. I should have left. I should have gotten back in my car and driven away as fast as possible. But I needed to understand. I needed to know what the hell had just happened. The fence around the cemetery was old and not that high, maybe 6 feet. I found a section where I could climb over. I'm not proud of trespassing in a cemetery, but at that moment, normal rules didn't seem to apply. I dropped down on the other side and followed the wet footprints. They were clear in the beam of my phone's flashlight, small, barefoot prints tracking water. The cemetery was old. Most of the headstones looked like they were from the early to mid-1900s. Some were cracked, some had fallen over. The rain made everything look eerie. Shadows moved in ways they shouldn't, and every sound was amplified. The footprints led me down the main path, then veered off onto the grass. I followed them between rows of graves, my shoes squelching in the muddy ground. Then they stopped at a grave. I shined my light on the headstone. It was simple gray granite with engraving that had been worn down by years of weather but was still readable. Emily Carter, born March 3, 1998, died February 14, 2018. She was waiting for help. February 14, 2018. 6 years ago to the day, my breath caught in my throat. I read the inscription again. She was waiting for help, and there, next to the headstone, laid out neatly on the grass, was the white dress. The same white dress the woman, the girl, Emily, had been wearing. It was soaked, still dripping water, but there was no body in it. Just the dress laid out like someone had carefully placed it there. I staggered backward, nearly tripping over another grave. My mind was reeling. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. But it was. The dress was real, the headstone was real, and somehow, impossibly, I had just given a ride to a girl who had been dead for 6 years. I ran. I didn't care about the footprints anymore, didn't care about trespassing. I climbed back over that fence faster than I thought possible, scraped my hands doing it, didn't care. I got back to my car, started the engine, and floored it out of there. I didn't stop driving until I reached Barstow, nearly 2 hours later. I checked into a motel, deadbolted the door, and sat on the bed, shaking. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting in my passenger seat, perfectly still, water dripping from her dress. The next morning, I did what I should have done immediately. I researched. I found articles about Emily Carter. She was 19 years old, a college student heading home to California for Valentine's Day 2018. Her car broke down on Route 66 during a rainstorm. This was before cell phones had great coverage out there. She tried to walk to find help. A hit-and-run driver struck her. They never found who did it. Her body was discovered the next morning, a quarter mile from Pinewood Cemetery. The coroner estimated she'd been dead for about 6 hours. She died in the rain, probably calling for help that never came. The article mentioned that her family buried her at Pinewood Cemetery. And they put that inscription on her headstone. She was waiting for help, because she had been She'd been waiting for someone to stop to help her, to save her, and no one did. I found more articles. It turned out I wasn't the first person to report picking up a hitchhiker near Pinewood Cemetery. There were accounts going back years, always on February 14th. Always during a rainstorm, always a young woman in a white dress, always Emily, still trying to get home. One article included an interview with the cemetery's caretaker. He said that every year on February 14th, no matter the weather, Emily's white dress appears on her grave. In the morning, it's gone. He stopped trying to figure out where it comes from. I sat in that motel room reading these articles and I cried. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I cried for Emily Carter, a girl I never knew, who died alone in the rain while cars drove past her. And I realized something. The inscription on her grave, she was waiting for help. It wasn't just about the night she died. It was about every February 14th since then. She was still waiting. Still trying to get home, still hoping someone would help her. I helped her get to the cemetery at least, to her final resting place. Maybe that's all she needed, for someone to finally stop, to finally care enough to help. Or maybe she's still out there, every rainy February 14th, thumb out, hoping the next driver will be the one who can take her all the way home. I left Barstow that afternoon. I didn't continue on Route 66. I took the interstate the rest of the way to California. Faster, safer, more boring, but I didn't care. That was 10 months ago. It's January now. In a few weeks, it'll be February 14th again. Valentine's Day, the anniversary of Emily's death. And somewhere in Arizona, if it rains that night, a young woman in a white dress will stand by the side of Route 66, thumb out, waiting for help that came 6 years too late. I'll never know if I actually helped her that night or if I just became part of her eternal loop, but I know this: I'll never pick up a hitchhiker again, not on Route 66, not on February 14th. Not ever. Because some people aren't looking for a ride, they're looking for something else. Something they lost, something they'll never find. And sometimes when you try to help, you become part of their story, part of their tragedy. Emily Carter died on February 14, 2018, but in another way, she's still dying, every year, every rainstorm. Every car that passes her by, I stopped. I helped her get to Pinewood Cemetery, but I couldn't save her, because you can't save someone who's already gone. Rest in peace, Emily. I hope you finally made it home. That's the story. That's what happened to me on Route 66 in February 2024. I've got the blanket from my car still, the one she held. It's been washed dozens of times, but sometimes on rainy nights, I swear it smells like cemetery earth and old perfume. I keep it as a reminder. A reminder that not everyone on the side of the road is looking for where you're going. Sometimes they're already there. Until next time, this is The Final Tales. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Final Tale. Before I begin today's story, I need you to understand something. This isn't just another creepy hospital story. This happened to me. Every word I'm about to tell you is true, and honestly, I still have nightmares about it. It was late November 2023. I remember because Thanksgiving was just around the corner, and I was visiting my cousin Marcus in Colorado Springs. Marcus had just gotten this job, night shift janitor at St. Michael's County Hospital. Now, if you know anything about old hospitals, you know they have a certain energy to them, but St. Michael's. Man, this place was different. The building itself dated back to 1952. It was this massive, sprawling complex that had been expanded over the decades. Most of it was still in use, the emergency room, the main wards, the ICU, but there was one section that had been closed off since 1995, the entire fourth floor of the East Wing. Budget cuts, they said. Structural issues, they claimed, but Marcus told me the real reason was darker than that. Bro, he said to me on my second night there, I hate going up to that floor. I'm supposed to check it once a week, make sure there's no water damage, no broken windows, stuff like that. But man, I get this feeling up there, like I'm being watched. I laughed it off. Come on, Marcus, you're telling me you're scared. You used to watch horror movies with me all night when we were kids. This is different, he said, and I could see he was serious. This isn't a movie, there's something wrong with that floor. That's when he asked me, look, I have to do the weekly check tomorrow night, Thursday, would you come with me? Just for company, I should have said no. I should have told him to grow a pair and do his job, but Marcus was family and I could see he was genuinely spooked, so I said yes. Thursday night, 11:47 p.m. That's when we entered the hospital through the service entrance. The place was quiet, you know that hospital quiet. where you can hear the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant beeping of monitors. It's peaceful in a weird way, but also unsettling. We took the service elevator to the fourth floor. Marcus had a master key that could open any door in the building. As the elevator climbed, I noticed his hands were shaking slightly as he gripped his flashlight. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, but he wasn't looking at me. Just. "Stay close, all right." The elevator dinged. Fourth floor. The doors slid open. Immediately I understood what Marcus meant. The air was different up here. Colder, stale. Like no one had breathed it in years, and there was a smell not quite rot, but something old. Like opening a book that's been sealed in an attic for decades. The hallway stretched out before us, lit only by emergency exit signs that cast everything in a sickly red glow. The floor was linoleum, cracked in places, and our footsteps echoed way too loudly. "We just need to check each room," Marcus whispered. "Make sure nothing's broken." "Then we're out of here. Why are you whispering?" I asked, also whispering. "I don't know," he admitted. "It just feels wrong to talk normally up here." We started down the hallway. Room 401, 402, 403, all empty, all filled with old hospital beds covered in white sheets. Some rooms had equipment that looked ancient, monitoring devices from the 80s, wheelchairs with rusted frames, IV stands that cast long shadows. Then we got to room 414. Marcus stopped at the door. "This is the one," he said. "The one what?" "The room that bothers me the most." I looked at the door. It was just like all the others, white paint peeling, a small window at eye level showing darkness beyond, but there was something about it, a feeling. Like the air around it was heavier. "Let's just check it and move on," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Marcus unlocked the door. It swung open with a long creak that sounded way too loud. He shined his flashlight inside. The room was larger than the others. It must have been a critical care room or something, because there were outlets and medical gas ports all over the walls. In the center was a hospital bed, and against the far wall, "Is that a wheelchair?" I asked. It was. An old-style wheelchair, the kind with big wheels and chrome handles. But what caught my attention was what was sitting on it, a teddy bear. Not just any teddy bear, this thing looked almost new. Brown fur, black button eyes, a little red bow around its neck. While everything else in the room was covered in dust, this bear looked like someone had placed it there yesterday. "Marcus," I said slowly, "was that there last week?" He was staring at it, and his face had gone pale. No, man, I checked this room. That wasn't here. Maybe another janitor came up. I'm the only one with access to this floor," he said. His voice was shaking now. "No one comes up here except me." We stood there for a moment just staring at this bear, and then I heard it, laughter, soft, distant. A child's laughter echoing from somewhere in the room. Marcus heard it too. I could tell because he grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. "Tell me you heard that," he whispered. I heard it. The laughter came again, playful, happy, but there was something off about it, something that made my skin crawl. It sounded old. Like a recording that had degraded over time. "We need to leave," Marcus said, but I couldn't move, because I was watching the wheelchair, and I swear on everything I love, it moved, just slightly. Just an inch. The wheels turned and the chair shifted position. "Did you see that?" My voice came out as a croak. "We're leaving." Now Marcus was backing toward the door, but then the wheelchair moved again. This time there was no mistaking it. It rolled forward slowly, deliberately. The teddy bear sat on it, unmoving, those black button eyes seeming to stare right at us. We both stumbled backward into the hallway. The wheelchair kept coming, rolling out of room 414 into the corridor. It moved at a walking pace, steady and purposeful. What the hell? I couldn't process what I was seeing. Wheelchairs don't just move. There had to be an explanation, a slope in the floor maybe. Some kind of mechanical malfunction, but then it turned. The wheelchair turned left, away from us, and continued down the hallway. We followed it. I don't know why. Fear, curiosity. Some combination of both. We stayed about 10 feet back, our flashlights trained on it. It rolled past room 415, 416, 417, 418, and stopped in front of room 419, just stopped. Like someone had hit the brakes, the door to 419 was slightly open. From inside, we heard something that made my blood run cold, humming, a child's voice humming a lullaby. I recognized the tune, "Hush Little Baby." My mom used to sing it to me. Marcus was trembling now. "This isn't real. This can't be real." I wanted to run. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to get out of there. But something else, some morbid need to understand, made me step forward. I pushed the door to room 419 open. The room was empty. Completely empty, no bed, no equipment, nothing, just bare walls and floor. But the humming continued, crystal clear, like someone was standing right there with us. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word. We need to go," Marcus said, "right now." "We need to." The humming stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse. It was absolute, suffocating. Even our breathing seemed muted, then static. It came from our walkie-talkies. Marcus had given me one in case we got separated. Both of them crackled to life simultaneously, filling the hallway with white noise, and through that static a voice, small, distant. A little girl's voice. "Thank you for finding me." The static cut out. The walkie-talkies went dead. We ran. I don't remember much about the run back to the elevator. Just the sound of our footsteps, our ragged breathing, the feeling that something was behind us. We hammered on the elevator button, and when the doors finally opened, we threw ourselves inside. As the doors closed, I looked back down that hallway. In the red glow of the exit signs, I could see the wheelchair. It was turning around, slowly, facing us and the teddy bear. I swear its head tilted. The elevator descended. Neither of us spoke. We were both shaking. When we got to the ground floor, Marcus went straight to his supervisor's office. But the supervisor had gone home. So we went outside into the cold November air and just stood there trying to process what had happened. "I'm quitting," Marcus said. "Tomorrow, I'm done." "Marcus, we need to tell someone." "We need to tell them what?" He turned to me. "That we saw a haunted wheelchair, that we heard a ghost. They'll think we're crazy. Hell, I think I'm crazy, but I couldn't let it go." The next morning, while Marcus slept, I went to the hospital's administrative office. I told them I was a researcher writing a paper on the history of Colorado hospitals, a complete lie, but they bought it. They let me access the archives. I spent 3 hours going through old records, and this is what I found. In 1994, a 7-year-old girl named Emma Grace Holloway was admitted to St. Michael's County Hospital. She had acute lymphoblastic leukemia. She was placed in room 419 of the 4th floor East Wing, the pediatric oncology ward at the time. Emma's case was tragic. Her parents had divorced, and neither wanted to take care of a sick child. Her mother had custody but rarely visited. The nurse's notes painted a heartbreaking picture of a little girl who spent her days alone. Except for her teddy bear, a brown bear with a red bow that her grandmother had given her. Emma used a wheelchair because the chemotherapy had made her weak. The nurses would often find her in other rooms, wheeling herself around, looking for someone to talk to. She was lonely. On December 3, 1994, Emma's condition worsened. She was moved back to room 419. According to the records, she asked the nurses to put her teddy bear on her wheelchair, which was parked in the corner of the room. She wanted to be able to see it. Emma Grace Holloway died on December 4, 1994 at 2:17 a.m. She was alone. Her mother was called but didn't arrive until the next morning. The cause of death was listed as septic shock secondary to pneumonia. The notes mentioned one more thing that made my hands shake as I read it. The nurses reported that for weeks after Emma's death, they would hear a child humming in room 419. They would find Emma's wheelchair moved to different positions. Some even claimed to hear a little girl's voice saying "thank you" when they talked to the empty room. The pediatric oncology ward was closed in 1995, officially due to budget cuts. But the nurses refused to work on that floor anymore. I took photos of the records and left. I showed them to Marcus that evening. He stared at the picture of Emma, a little girl with a bald head from chemotherapy, smiling despite everything. Holding a brown teddy bear with a red bow, she just wanted someone to find her, Marcus said quietly. "She was alone when she died, and she's still alone up there." "Not anymore," I said. "We found her, we heard her, maybe that's what she needed." Marcus quit his job the next day anyway. He said he couldn't go back even to the ground floor. The memories were too much. As for me, I left Colorado a week later. I tried to put it out of my mind, tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was all a shared hallucination. Maybe there was a logical explanation. But 6 months later, I got a call from Marcus. He'd been talking to a former coworker at the hospital. According to her, the 4th floor East Wing had been completely quiet since that November night. No more sounds. No more wheelchair movements. It was like whatever had been trapped there had finally been acknowledged, finally been seen. I still think about Emma sometimes, about how lonely she must have been. About how even in death she was waiting for someone to notice her, to acknowledge that she had existed, that she had mattered. And I think about that teddy bear sitting on that wheelchair. A 7-year-old's companion in life and in death. Sometimes I wonder if she's at peace now. I hope she is. God, I really hope she is, because no child should be alone, not in life. And not in death, that's the story. That's what happened at St. Michael's County Hospital in November 2023. Believe it or not, that's up to you, but I was there, I saw it. I heard it, and I'll never forget the sound of that little girl's voice saying, "Thank you, never. If you're still listening, thanks for staying with me through this." I know it was long, but I needed to tell the whole story. Emma deserved that much. Until next time, this is the final tale. What I'm about to tell you happened just a few months ago, October 2023. And I want to start by saying this. If you're planning a trip to Salem, Massachusetts, be very, very careful about where you stay. My name is David, and I went to Salem with 3 of my best friends, Mike, Jake, and Chris. We'd been friends since college, and every year we tried to do some kind of trip together. This year, someone, I think it was Mike, suggested Salem for Halloween. Perfect, right? Salem is famous for the witch trials. There's tons of history, ghost tour, the whole Halloween atmosphere. We're all into horror movies, books, podcasts, you name it. We thought it would be fun. Ironic almost, we had no idea. We booked an Airbnb about 2 months in advance. October in Salem books up fast, so we were lucky to find anything. The listing was for a colonial house built in 1692, the same year as the witch trials. The photos showed this beautiful historic home with original wooden beams, a big fireplace, antique furniture. The description called it an authentic piece of Salem history. The reviews were mostly positive. A few people mentioned it was atmospheric and definitely haunted feeling, but in Salem, that's kind of a selling point, right? One reviewer said they'd heard footsteps at night, but they chalked it up to the old house settling. There was one review that should have been a red flag. A woman had written, "Beautiful house, but we left after the second night. Some places have too much history." No explanation beyond that. We should have paid attention to that review. We arrived on October 28th, planning to stay through November 1st, 5 nights total. The house was in a residential area about a mile from downtown Salem, on a street called Gallows Hill Road. Yeah, I know, Gallows Hill, where they hanged the accused witches. Great street name for a vacation rental. The house itself was stunning. 3 stories, dark wood siding, small windows with wavy old glass. The kind of place that looks like it belongs on a postcard. Our host, a guy named Richard, met us there to give us the keys and show us around. Built in 1692, Richard said as we walked through the front door. It's been in my family for generations. You guys are going to love it, just keep in mind it's an old house, it makes noise. The floorboards creak, pipes clang sometimes. All normal stuff. He showed us the living room, big fireplace, old sofa, a TV that looked out of place among all the antique furniture. The kitchen had been modernized but still had the original brick hearth. Upstairs were 4 bedrooms, each with a double bed and old wooden furniture. The master bedroom is the original bedroom, Richard said, gesturing to the largest room. This is where the first owner slept. The house has been renovated over the years, obviously, but we've tried to keep it historically accurate. Who was the first owner? Jake asked. He was always interested in history. Richard hesitated just for a second, but I noticed. A woman named Margaret Hale. She lived here with her husband until his death in 1710. She died in 1725. Was she involved in the witch trials? Chris asked. I mean, being here in 1692. Everyone in Salem was involved in the witch trials, one way or another, Richard said. He was moving toward the door like he was eager to leave. Listen, I've got to run. You guys have my number if you need anything. Enjoy your stay. Happy Halloween. And he left quickly. Like he couldn't get out fast enough. We spent the rest of that first day exploring Salem. Did the touristy stuff, visited the Witch Museum, walked through the old Burying Point Cemetery, went on a ghost tour that night. It was fun, cheesy in parts, but fun. We got back to the Airbnb around midnight. We were all in good spirits, laughing about the ghost tour guide who'd been way too dramatic. We settled into the living room, planning to watch some horror movies and drink the beer we'd brought. That first night was fine. We stayed up until about 3 a.m., then headed to bed. I took one of the smaller bedrooms. Jake took the master. Mike and Chris took the other 2 rooms. I slept okay. Woke up around 9 a.m. feeling pretty rested. But when we all gathered for breakfast, we'd bought groceries the day before. Jake looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, pale, shaky. You okay, man? I asked. I didn't sleep at all, he said. I kept having this dream that someone was in the room with me, standing over the bed. I'd wake up and there'd be no one there, but the second I'd fall asleep again, the same dream, over and over. Probably all the ghost tour talk, Mike said, laughing. Got into your head, yeah, Jake said, but he didn't sound convinced. Probably. The second night, October 29th, things got weirder. We'd spent the day at a Halloween festival, came back around 10 p.m. We were making dinner when Jake started complaining about his neck hurting. It's like a burning sensation, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Let me see, Chris said. He was pre-med, always ready to diagnose something. Jake turned around and Chris's expression changed. Dude, you've got marks on your neck. We all looked. There were red marks on the back of Jake's neck in a distinctive pattern, like fingers. Like someone had grabbed him. What the hell? Jake went to the bathroom mirror to look. How did that happen? Maybe you scratched yourself in your sleep, I suggested. Or an allergic reaction to something, but the marks looked too deliberate, too much like a hand. Jake was freaked out but trying not to show it. We convinced him it was probably nothing. Maybe he'd leaned against something or had a reaction to the detergent on the pillowcases. That night we decided to stay together. Safety in numbers, even though we were joking about it. We set up in the living room with sleeping bags and pillows, planning to do a horror movie marathon and just crash there. Around 2:30 a.m. we were halfway through The Shining when we heard it. Footsteps from upstairs. We all stopped talking. The movie was still playing, but we weren't watching it anymore. We were listening. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, walking down the upstairs hallway. Did you guys hear that? Chris whispered. We all had. Maybe the house is settling, Mike offered. Richard said it makes noise, but these weren't creaking floorboards. These were footsteps, clear, measured footsteps, like someone pacing. Jake muted the TV. In the silence, we could hear it clearly, back and forth, down the upstairs hallway. Okay, that's not settling, I said. Someone's up there. Who? Chris asked. We're all down here. The doors are locked. There's no one else in the house. We sat there for a minute listening. The footsteps continued. Finally, Mike stood up. I'll check it out. You guys coming? We all grabbed our phones for flashlights and probably for calling 911 if needed, and went upstairs together. The hallway was empty. All the bedroom doors were open. We'd left them closed. I specifically remembered closing mine, but now all 4 bedroom doors stood wide open. Did we leave them open? Chris asked. No, Jake said. I closed the master bedroom door. I know I did. We checked each room. Empty. No one was there. No signs of anyone having been there. This is fucked up, Mike said. Then Chris, who'd gone into the master bedroom, called out, Guys, you need to see this. We crowded into the doorway. On the floor, in what looked like chalk, someone had drawn a circle. It was perfect, maybe 6 feet in diameter, and inside the circle were symbols, strange symbols that looked old, hand-drawn with careful precision. In the center of the circle, written in the same chalk, were 3 words, Confess your sins. We stood there, staring at it. No one spoke for a long moment. What the absolute fuck? Jake finally said. Is this some kind of prank? Mike asked. Did Richard do this? Why would he? I pulled out my phone and took pictures. And we've been here the whole time. Chris was examining the symbols. These look old, like really old, colonial era maybe. I used Google Lens to try to identify them. It took a minute, but the app came back with a match. The symbols were from Puritan confession rituals, marks used during the Salem witch trials when the accused were forced to confess. No, I said, showing them my phone. No, no, no. This is way too specific. How would Richard even know to use these exact symbols? He wouldn't, Chris said quietly, unless they were already part of the house. Part of its history. We went back downstairs. I pulled up the Airbnb listing on my phone and messaged Richard. We need to talk about the house. There's something you didn't tell us. Call me ASAP. It was almost 3 a.m., so I didn't expect an immediate response, but my phone rang about 30 seconds later. Get out, Richard said before I could even say hello. Get out of the house. Now, what are you talking about? What's going on? I should have told you before you booked. I'm sorry. I needed the money and I thought maybe it wouldn't happen. It doesn't happen with everyone, but you need to leave right now. Richard, what are you talking about? He took a deep breath. Margaret Hale, the original owner. She wasn't just a resident of Salem during the witch trials. She was one of the accusers. She testified against 7 women. All 7 were hanged based primarily on her testimony. I felt my stomach drop, and they were innocent, all 7 of them. Margaret, she lied. She had personal grudges, property disputes, petty jealousies, and she sent those women to their deaths because of it. It ate at her for years. In 1720, 5 years before her death, she tried to confess. She went to the church, to the magistrates, but they wouldn't hear it, so she started writing confessions in this house. On the floors, on the walls, demanding that others confess their sins. As if that could somehow balance the scales. You're telling me this house is haunted by a woman who falsely accused people of witchcraft. I'm telling you that this house has a history. And sometimes it demands confession. If you have something you're hiding, something you're guilty of, the house will find it. It will force it out of you. That's why people leave. That's why that woman in the reviews left after 2 nights. I looked at Jake, who was sitting on the couch, still rubbing the marks on his neck. What happens if we don't leave? I asked. The torment gets worse, physical manifestations. Some people have had full psychological breaks. Please, just go. I'll refund you completely. Just leave the house. We left. We packed our stuff in 15 minutes and got out of there. Found a hotel in downtown Salem, way overpriced, but we didn't care. In the car, on the way to the hotel, Jake finally spoke up. I cheated on Rebecca, he said quietly. Rebecca was his girlfriend of 3 years. Last month, I was in New York for work and I hooked up with someone. I felt guilty as hell, but I didn't tell her. I was just going to bury it and never do it again. That's what the house had wanted, his confession, his sin. The marks on his neck didn't fade for a week. We spent the rest of our Salem trip at the hotel. Didn't talk much about what had happened, what was there to say. But here's the thing that still haunts me. I looked up Margaret Hale when I got home. I wanted to know more about her. She did confess, eventually. Not in any public forum, but in her private writings, journals that were found after her death. She'd written thousands of pages, listing the names of the women she'd condemned, begging for forgiveness, demanding that others confess their sins as penance for hers. She believed that if enough people confessed, if enough truth was brought to light, it would somehow undo what she'd done, erase her guilt. It didn't work. She died in that house, in that bedroom, probably surrounded by her written confessions, and apparently she never stopped trying to collect more. The house is still listed on Airbnb. I checked. Same photos, same description. The review I mentioned, the woman who left after 2 nights, it's been deleted. The only reviews now are the positive ones. I wanted to leave a review, to warn people. But what would I say? The ghost of a witch trial accuser will psychologically torture you until you confess your darkest secrets. They'd think I was crazy, so I'm telling you instead. If you're planning a trip to Salem, if you're looking for a place to stay, avoid any listing for a colonial house on Gallows Hill Road. Avoid any property owned by Richard Hale. And if you do end up there, if you see that chalk circle and those symbols appear, confess. Whatever you're hiding, whatever you're ashamed of, just confess. Because Margaret Hale won't stop until she gets what she wants. And what she wants is the truth, all of it, even if it destroys you. Jake and Rebecca broke up, by the way. He confessed to her what he'd done and she left him. He said he had to tell her. After that night, after feeling hands around his throat, he couldn't live with the lie anymore. Maybe that's what Margaret wanted all along, not the confessions themselves, but the consequences, the punishment that comes with truth. 7 women died because of her lies. Maybe she thinks forcing truths out of others is some kind of cosmic balance, or maybe she's just misery incarnate and misery loves company. Either way, I'm never going back to Salem. The history there is too heavy, the ghosts are too real, and some confessions, some truths, they're better left buried until next time. This is the final tale. Before I start today's story, I need to ask you something. Have you ever had a moment where reality just breaks? Where something so impossible happens that your brain can't process it, can't fit it into your understanding of how the world works? That happened to me, and I'm still trying to understand it. My name is David, and this story begins in June 2024. I just moved to Seattle for a new job, software engineer at a tech startup in Capitol Hill. Good pay, interesting work, nice apartment. Everything was going well. Life was normal, boring even. I liked boring. Boring was safe. The apartment was a 1-bedroom in a converted warehouse building. Very Seattle, exposed brick, high ceilings, industrial fixtures. I was on the 4th floor, unit 412. My neighbors seemed normal enough. Below me was a young couple, always arguing. Above me was someone who apparently only wore hard-soled shoes and walked constantly. But that's apartment living, right? I moved in on June 1st. Spent the first week unpacking, getting settled, learning my way around the neighborhood. Started my job on June 10th. Met my coworkers, good people, a bit too into craft beer and hiking, but friendly. everything was fine, until Friday, June 14th. I remember I'd stayed up late that night. It was my first week at work, and I was still adjusting to the schedule, the stress, the new environment. I'd watched a couple episodes of some show on Netflix, finally turned off the lights around 1:30 a.m. I was almost asleep when my phone rang, not buzzed, not vibrated, rang loudly. That default iPhone ringtone that sounds like a marimba. I jerked awake, heart pounding. Who the hell calls at? I looked at my phone. 1:47 a.m., but it was the caller ID that made me freeze. It was my own number. My phone was showing an incoming call from myself. I stared at it for a few rings, my brain trying to process this. How could I be calling myself? That didn't make sense. It had to be a glitch or some kind of spoofing, or the ringing stopped, missed call. I sat there in the dark, phone in hand, trying to rationalize it. Spam callers can fake numbers, right? They do it all the time. Somehow they'd spoofed my number. Weird, but possible. I put the phone down and tried to go back to sleep, but I kept thinking about it. Why would a spam caller use my own number? What would be the point? Usually they fake local numbers to make you think it's someone you might know, but your own number, that didn't make sense. I picked up my phone again and checked my recent calls. There it was, incoming call from my number, 1:47 a.m. missed. I checked my outgoing calls. Nothing. No record of me calling anyone at 1:47 a.m. Of course there wasn't. I hadn't made a call. I was trying to sleep. I set an alarm to check my phone records in the morning and finally fell asleep around 2:30 a.m. The next day, Saturday, I logged into my carrier's website and checked my detailed call history. No outgoing call at 1:47 a.m. on June 14th. Nothing. So where had the call come from? I spent way too much time that day Googling calling yourself and receiving call from own number. Most results were about scams, about spoofing, but a few results were stranger. People on forums claiming they'd received calls from their own numbers. Some said they'd answered and heard only static. Some said they'd heard their own voice. A few claimed the calls had warned them about future events. I dismissed these as internet nonsense, creepypasta, people making up stories for attention, but still, it bothered me. That night, Saturday, June 15th, I made sure my phone was on silent. I didn't want to be woken up again, but at exactly 1:47 a.m. I woke up anyway. No alarm, no sound, I just woke up. And immediately looked at my phone. 3 missed calls, all from my own number, all at 1:47 a.m. My hands were shaking as I checked. No outgoing calls in my history. Nothing. This time there was a voicemail. I don't know why I listened to it. Every instinct told me not to, but I had to know. I put the phone to my ear and played the message. Static. Loud, harsh static that made me pull the phone away slightly. And then, a voice, my voice, don't go to work Monday. That was it. The message ended. I played it again. Same thing. Static, then my voice, definitely my voice. I'd recognize it anywhere, saying don't go to work Monday. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in my living room with all the lights on, playing that voicemail over and over. It was my voice. The cadence, the tone, even the slight pause between don't and go, that was how I talked. But I hadn't left that message. I couldn't have. You can't call yourself. That's not how phones work. By sunrise, I'd convinced myself there had to be a rational explanation. Maybe it was an elaborate prank. Maybe someone had AI-generated my voice using samples from social media or something. Maybe my phone was hacked. I spent Sunday researching, changed all my passwords. Ran security scans on my phone, checked for suspicious apps. Nothing. Sunday night, I told myself I wouldn't look at my phone at 1:47 a.m. I'd leave it in another room. Whatever was happening, I wouldn't engage with it. But at 1:46 a.m., I found myself walking to the kitchen where I'd left my phone. Like I was being pulled, like I had no choice. At exactly 1:47 a.m. it rang. I answered. Hello. My voice was barely a whisper, static, so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear, then my voice again, but this time it was panicked, scared. Urgent, listen to me, Monday, 9:15 a.m., conference room, don't go, the ceiling. The call cut off. I was breathing hard, my heart racing. I looked at my phone. Incoming call from my number, 1:47 a.m., duration, 12 seconds. I played it back from my recent calls, same message. My voice terrified, warning me about Monday, 9:15 a.m., conference room, something about a ceiling. At work, we had a weekly Monday morning meeting, 9 a.m., in the main conference room. But what about the ceiling? What could possibly happen with the ceiling? I barely slept. By Monday morning, I'd made a decision. I was calling in sick. I didn't care if it looked bad, didn't care if my boss thought I was flaky. Whatever was happening, that message, my own voice, desperate and scared, had convinced me. I emailed my boss at 8 a.m., not feeling well, taking a sick day. Then I sat in my apartment watching the clock. 9:00 a.m. came and went. 9:15 a.m., 9:20 a.m. At 9:37 a.m., my phone rang. My coworker, Brian, dude, where are you? Are you okay? I'm homesick. Why? Holy shit, man, holy shit. The ceiling in the conference room just collapsed, like completely collapsed. Water pipe burst on the floor above us. It must have been leaking for weeks, and the whole ceiling just came down, right in the middle of the meeting. I felt my blood run cold. Is everyone okay? 4 people got hit by debris. Sarah's got a concussion. Mike broke his arm. Tom and Jennifer are bruised up pretty bad, but they'll be okay. But dude, your chair. Your normal seat, there was a support beam, it came right down. If you'd been sitting there, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I'll be right there, I said. I got to the office in 20 minutes. The conference room was cordoned off. There was water everywhere, chunks of ceiling tile and drywall, twisted metal beams. The damage was massive. Brian took me aside. How did you know not to come in? I mean, you emailed sick at 8 a.m. That's like really lucky timing. I just didn't feel well, I lied. But later in the bathroom, I pulled out my phone and played that voicemail again. Listen to me. Monday, 9:15 a.m., conference room, don't go, the ceiling, it had warned me, my own voice from somewhere somehow had warned me. I saved that voicemail, backed it up to 3 different cloud services, because I absolutely knew, that no one would believe me without proof. That night I didn't even try to sleep at 1:47 a.m. I was waiting, sitting in my living room, phone in hand, recording app ready. At 1:47 a.m. the phone rang. I answered and immediately started recording on my computer. Static, then silence. Hello, I said. Who is this? How are you doing this? More static. Then my voice very faint. Can't explain. Just listen, save the messages. Am I talking to myself? Am I calling from the future? Time doesn't loop needs anchor Wednesdays dangerous. The call cut off. I played back my recording. It was all there. The static, my voice, the warning about Wednesdays. Wednesday, 2 days away. I didn't go to work Wednesday. I told my boss I was still recovering. I stayed in my apartment, doors locked, curtains drawn. Nothing happened. 1:47 a.m. Thursday morning, my phone rang. I answered. You listened. Good. What am I asked. What's happening to me? Not you. The place, apartment, 412, previous tenant. What about the previous tenant? Static. The call ended. I spent Thursday researching my apartment building. I went to the building manager's office. I'm in 412, I told the property manager, a middle-aged woman named Susan. Can you tell me about the previous tenant? She looked uncomfortable. Why do you ask? I'm just curious. How long was the apartment empty before I moved in? About 2 months, she said. And before that, she hesitated. Look, we're not required to disclose this, but the previous tenant died. My stomach dropped. How? He was elderly. Natural causes, they said. Fell in the bathroom, hit his head, wasn't found for a few days. What was his name? David Chen. He was 73. David, my name. Did he ever report anything strange about the apartment? Susan frowned. Strange how? Phone calls, unusual occurrences, anything. Not that I'm aware of. Why? I thanked her and left. That night I couldn't stop thinking about it. David Chen, 73 years old, died in this apartment, the same apartment where I was receiving calls from my own number. At 1:47 a.m. the phone rang. David Chen, I said immediately. The previous tenant, is this about him? My voice on the other end. He found the loop, tried to warn himself. Too late. Warn himself about what? The fall, bathroom, tried to change it, couldn't. Time doesn't change it. Records. I was starting to understand. You're saying David Chen received calls from himself, warnings about his death, but he couldn't prevent it. Loop, needs, anchor, you are next, anchor. What does that mean? Am I going to die here too? Not if you listen, move, out, leave. 412. The call ended. I sat there shaking. This apartment. There was something about this apartment that created some kind of temporal loop. David Chen had experienced it. He'd received warnings from his own future self. And he died anyway despite the warnings. Now I was experiencing it. The next morning I gave my 30-day notice. I told my landlord I'd gotten a job offer in another city, a complete lie. I just needed to get out of apartment 412, but I had to stay for 30 days, lease terms. Every night at 1:47 a.m. my phone rang. Sometimes the messages were clear, sometimes just static. But they were always warnings. Don't take the stairs Thursday, elevator only. I took the elevator that Thursday. Later learned someone had spilled oil on the stairs and 2 people had fallen. Package, don't open, Saturday, contaminated. A package arrived Saturday, I refused delivery. Learned later it was recalled due to a chemical contamination in the manufacturing. Red, car, intersection, Pike, run, the light. I ran a red light at Pike Street. A red sedan ran theirs too, from the other direction. If I'd stopped, it would have T-boned my driver's side at 40 mph. The calls were keeping me alive. My future self, or something using my voice, was reaching back to warn me, to guide me through dangers I couldn't see coming. But here's what terrified me. David Chen had received the same warnings. And he'd still died, which meant the warnings weren't enough. They couldn't change the fundamental outcome. They could only delay it. 2 weeks into my 30-day notice, the messages changed. The loop is closing. Final message soon. December 8th. December 8th, that was months away. What happens December 8th? I asked during one call. 3 p.m. Door, don't answer the door. That was all I could get. Don't answer the door. December 8th, 3 p.m. I moved out of apartment 412 on July 15th, 2024. Got a new apartment across town. Different building, different neighborhood, away from whatever was in that place. The calls stopped. No more 1:47 a.m. wake-ups, no more static, no more warnings. My life went back to normal. Work, friends, weekends, normal. I almost forgot about it. Almost convinced myself it had been stress or a weird prank or something explainable, until last week. Friday, January 17th, 2025, 1:47 a.m. My phone rang, my number. I answered, my hands shaking. Static, then my voice. December 8th, almost here. Remember, don't answer the door. 3 p.m. No matter what. December 8th, I checked my calendar. That's tomorrow. Today, actually, since it's past midnight now. Today, December 8th, 2025, at 3 p.m. someone or something is going to knock on my door. And I can't answer it. I don't know who it'll be. I don't know what will happen if I answer. But my future self, the version of me that's lived past today, that's experienced whatever comes next, is warning me, desperately, so I'm going to listen. I'm recording this now at 2:47 p.m. on December 8th, 2025. In 13 minutes, someone will knock on my door. I've locked it. Deadbolt, chain, everything. I've closed all my curtains. I'm sitting in my bathroom, the most interior room of my apartment, with my phone and my laptop. Whatever happens in 13 minutes, I won't answer that door, because David Chen didn't listen. David Chen thought he could outsmart it or confront it or change it. And David Chen died. I won't make the same mistake. It's 2:53 p.m. now. 7 minutes. I can hear my heartbeat. It's so loud. My phone is silent, no more warnings, no more calls, like my future self has said everything it can say. 2:57 p.m., 3 minutes, I'm scared, I'm really scared. Because I don't know what happens if I succeed. If I don't answer the door, do the calls stop? Do I break the loop, or does it just continue? Will I be the one making these calls someday, warning my past self? And here's the worst thought, what if the calls aren't from my future self at all? What if they're from David Chen? What if he's trapped in some kind of loop, forced to relive his death over and over, and the only thing he can do is warn the next tenant? What if I'm next in line? What if someday I'll be the one making these calls to whoever moves into apartment 412 after me? 2:59 p.m., 1 minute, oh God, I can hear footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment, slow. Measured, getting closer, they've stopped, they're right outside my door. It's 3:00 p.m. Silence, then knocking, not aggressive, not loud, just 3 gentle knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I'm not answering, I'm not answering, I'm not answering. A voice from outside the door, it's my voice. David, I know you're in there, please, you need to let me in, it's important, please. I'm trying to help you, it's me, my voice, exactly, but I'm in here, I'm in the bathroom, that's not me out there. David, please, you're running out of time, you need to open this door, trust me. I'm you, I'm trying to save you. The knocking again. Harder now, knock, knock, knock. David, open the door. I'm not going to. The warning said don't answer, don't open, no matter what. Even if it's my own voice, especially if it's my own voice. The knocking is getting frantic now. Bang, bang, bang. You don't understand. If you don't open this door, the loop closes. You'll be trapped, please. Trapped in what? The loop David Chen was in. The loop that led to his death. I won't answer. The banging stops. Silence. I wait. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. Nothing. I slowly open the bathroom door, creep through my apartment to the front door, look through the peephole. The hallway is empty. I wait another hour before I finally carefully open my front door and look out. Nothing, no one, just an empty hallway. On my doormat is a phone, an old flip phone. I pick it up. It's not locked. I open it, there's one contact saved. You, there's one voicemail. I play it static, then my voice. You made the right choice. The loop is broken for you, but remember this November 14th, 2027, you'll receive a call. Answer it. Warn him. November 14th, 2027, almost 2 years from now, I'll receive a call. And I'll need to answer it to warn him, someone else, someone who will move into apartment 412. The loop isn't broken, it's just transferred. David Chen warned me through these calls, even though I never lived in 412 when he was alive. Somehow, across time, across death, he reached me, and now I'll do the same for whoever comes next. I'm part of the loop now, not trapped in it, but bound to it, a guardian maybe, or just another victim who managed to survive, I don't know which. All I know is that in November 2027, my phone will ring at 1:47 a.m., and I'll answer, and I'll warn whoever's on the other end, don't go to work Monday, or don't answer the door, or whatever they need to hear, because that's how this works. That's how the loop continues. Each survivor becomes the warner. Each person who escapes becomes responsible for the next. And somewhere in apartment 412, time is doing something it shouldn't, creating pockets, loops, warnings that echo backward and forward. I'll never know why. I'll never understand how. I just know that I'm alive because someone warned me, and someday I'll warn someone else. That's the burden. That's the price of survival. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about renting an apartment in Seattle, in Capitol Hill, in a converted warehouse building, if you're offered Unit 412, don't take it, please. Don't take it, because if you do, you'll receive a call at 1:47 a.m. from yourself, and you'll have to choose whether to listen. I hope you make the right choice. Until next time. This is the final tale, and remember, sometimes the strangest calls come from the people closest to you, even if that person is you.